So today have someone very special. We are with the person Nishith Desai. He's the key architect behind India's multi-billion-dollar FDI revolution. He's also called the father of international tax. I truly believe he's a visionary. He thinks about things which we can't even dream of. He thought about AI when we could not even think what is AI. So thank you so much for being here.
Most
It's
welcome.
absolute pleasure to talk to you. I mean, since many years I've been wanting to meet you and it's just a pleasure to have you. So thank you so much.
I love meeting young kids because that keeps me going, and I also stay young.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, you have impressive labels. I mean, we hear you about being father of international tax, key architect for so many things. So, who is Nishith Desai and what is NDA? I mean, just as a broad background, what is it?
NDA is an idea, you know. So the way in which you look at, I think it's fun to do professional work, but ideate, create, change the world. I think that's the core. And as you know, that it's a purpose. It's a purpose that drives us. So of course we like to do most innovative, complex transactions, deals, litigation, and all that kind of stuff. But more important is to foster next generation of socially conscious lawyers. And number three, to shape the future of law. Because if we don't shape, somebody else will do it, and you crib. So whole idea is a three-dimensional purpose, not unidimensional just to make money or earn, which is important, no doubt about it, economics. But I think two other purposes, you know, to foster socially conscious lawyers, shaping the future of law, looking and gazing into the future, it makes your work life a little exciting.
I was reading somewhere that before you started NDA, you actually tracked or researched about 100 professional services firm, lawyers, or CA firms or international firms. I mean, I would say that's not diligence, that's like obsession. So, what was the reason behind you going and seeing more than 100 professional services firm or studying them deeply? I mean, what was the thought process behind that?
See, I was a counsel, so started as an employment lawyer. Couldn't find a good senior. Eventually, I got into a field which I hated the most, called tax. I
Okay.
always thought that tax is a corrupt place, and I don't. And I was very close to Jayaprakash Narayan. I was leader of Bombay Students Union, uh, Sangharsha Samiti, those days during emergency. So we were all naughty boys, and so employment law and those kind of things were interest to me, but couldn't make much headway. So I ultimately got introduced to tax field, and then I found people like S.P. Mehta, Palkhiwala, and others who had done a great job out of that, and the integrity and a lot to learn from them, right? And I thought now I can do practice a little more honestly, and especially at a higher level, you know. At that time, to appear before commissioner was a pride.
Oh, okay.
I'm just giving you. And so it was good to start and then got into that. But after some time, I did my master's with international business law and specialized globalization. And along with that, I thought that nobody had studied deeply the cross-border aspects of Indian taxation, and uh, therefore I said, let me just study. What is it like? There was no guide, nobody else. After doing my master, I wanted to do PhD, but there was no guide. So I said, let me study myself, and so I embarked on a self-study. I was a counselor, so those days India was Indianizing everything, and I was sitting on super specialization globalization. 77 was the year. At that time, the same year, Coca-Cola was thrown out,
Oh, that.
IBM was thrown out, and then Pepsi came in, and other companies were required to dilute their holdings to 40% and all this kind of thing. I'm not being judgmental whether it was right or wrong, but it was an environment where my specialization and my desire to see Indian companies going global was a little bit of a conflict. So, lawyer who doesn't have practice, what do? You start writing articles, you start writing books, starting to do all those kind of things, lectures on the subject that you don't have much practice on. But it gave me a lot of insight over a period of 3-4 years. And then in 1981, I stumbled on one of the biggest clients in the world. I never knew how large these companies could be, company called Bechtel. So 1981, they were looking for somebody who understood international taxation of international construction contracts. Both are complicated subject. And they went around the country, couldn't find somebody who could properly advise. Then they saw my articles and they found me out and they were looking up and down. I was a kid and they were looking at billions of dollars project, right? And but they asked me a lot of questions. I said, I know subject, but I don't have practical experience. I said, honestly speaking. But eventually they were happy, got engaged. So that was a good client to start with. So whole practice grew from Bechtel in California, where it was headquartered. And from there, most of the work began to grow in the US, the Clorox company, Levi Strauss, and then I had very interesting assignment from a company called DuPont to do corporate philosophy study. Again, it's a long story. Today's session will not be enough to talk about it. But lawyer landing up on a primary research project to do corporate philosophy study. Because in the conversation with them, I had said that, they wanted to develop strategy. And I am not MBA, I'm not like you find graduate and all that kind of stuff fancy. But I said, what is strategy? Strategy is about choices. All choices in life are because of philosophy. So what is your philosophy? So we started discussing philosophy, and the leader of the group in DuPont, Bilal Amkal, he was so happy discussing philosophy, and he thought from India when we go, philosophy is the core. So we started talking about corporate philosophy. And if you look at every chairman's statement in annual statement, you'll find first paragraph is on corporate philosophy so and so. But when I look at case studies in MBA or otherwise, there are hardly any case study about philosophy.
Correct.
They start with strategy. Whereas strategy comes at a lower level, I said. It's philosophy from their vision to mission to goals, then strategy, then structure. Structure always follows strategy, not the otherwise. So, all those kind of things. And I landed up on a very interesting project. So I did primary study for them and gave a report. And then practice was moving to Wall Street. So there was one of the investment banking company called Bear Stearns. They were one of the fifth largest investment bankers like Goldman Sachs and Merrill and all that kind of thing. So the managing director became a good friend of mine. And he said, Nishith, why don't you set up a law firm? I said, in India, counsels, barristers, they don't set up law firms.
Oh, that time there were not much law firms.
So counsels never thought of setting up law firms. And Indian law had already changed, it had already changed. So I said, just as I learned from primary study from DuPont, why not look at, I was not in a hurry to set up shop next morning. So I said, let me talk to senior partners of, law firms, globally, accounting firms, because my relationship with accounting firm has been very good for a long period of time, because as a tax lawyer, you constantly deal with them, right? And so then I started talking to a lot of how they are organized, how come they become big, and it's always sometimes strange, you're 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 lawyers or accountants and all that thing. So then I went into, I had a lot of time, and then after landed up with a consulting firm, McKinsey at that point of time, and they told me, gave me another case study of Wachtell Lipton. Okay, it's a worth case study. You must look at it some point in time, and they are highest per partner revenue, per partner profit. Not that money matters per se, but they are doing something interesting. So I looked at, okay, McKinsey is a good model to look at, because McKinsey was shaped by a lawyer. It was struggling to survive in 1930s, and lawyer from Jones' day, Marvin Bower, He came, he took over, and he changed the whole complexion of the McKinsey, which was accounting and engineering consulting company. And so he imbibed all the features of a law firm. So you usually hardly see any advertisement of McKinsey, okay, other consulting firms, you have a big board and all that kind of stuff. Whole profile is that. They don't like to use word, we are in the business of consulting, we are in the profession of consulting, and all those kind of things. I don't want to bore you with those conversations. But I learned a lot, and they helped me to think that, you can become small, but you can still be more impactful. So don't be in the craze of becoming
Big. Is that
big.
why you call yourself as a nano firm?
Yeah, so then I coined, after some years, nano firm, and I realized that there are two ways to become powerful. Nothing wrong with one or the other. You can become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, like an elephant. You can trash anyone who comes your way, you can, you know, kill him. Other thing is to become smaller and smaller, smaller, like an atom.
Okay.
And you can become as powerful as anybody else. So there is nothing about size, it's about position. At individual level, you can be more powerful than anybody else. Look at um, Palkiwala, okay, and look at all the professional firms around, right? Whose brand equity was better,
Yeah.
correct? Whose per person revenue must be better? Take any uh, parameter, okay. So it is not about one individual, can be institution, where a lot of institutions could be more like individual, mom and pop shop. So whole idea is that it's about positioning and your behavioral pattern. And over a period of time, I became an ardent student of organizational behavior, which is my favorite subject now. And our law firm is now a case study in management schools in the US. John Wiley has published a case
Oh,
study in
nice.
the Journal of Organizational Excellence on organizational behavior as a competitive advantage. There are three ways to compete. One is on price, okay, product or innovation, and third way is to have organizational behavior. If your organizational behavior, culture, ethos, integrity, that itself is a competitive advantage. People love to do business with you. As I said, OB is the most important strategic advantage. Why? Because I believe strategy, one definition, is to create a differentiation, which differentiation, even if known to others, cannot be copied. Correct?
So that you're core believer
If
of that.
it can be copied, it is tactic. So pricing, suppose somebody says I charge higher, lower, somebody will lower the price and then the lower, and then you got bottomless
Is
pit.
raised to the bottom.
Correct? Either way, similarly, innovation, there is no end to that. There are other ways of doing it. Sometimes you don't have either of the two specific advantage, or you are not known for pricing, or like Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton, more charges they charge for a bag, more customers go. Correct? Then there are innovations like Apple. Every year they keep on doing incremental innovation, but you still find it sexy and still want to do it, right? So Samsung, you're just talking, the camera is much better than anybody else, right? So there are certain differentiation, but if you do not have that, nothing else. But when people think you're honest, you're good, and nice people to work with, sincere, that itself is an advantage. So OB, organizational behavior, is very important part of the game. So I learned that, and then in 1990 I decided to set up law firm, and after studying for 4.5 years all these law firms, accounting here, I was not in a hurry to set up shop, right? And then I felt, how can I differentiate? Then I looked at all the law firms, accounting firms, consulting firms. Most of them were stuck in the present. They're focusing on past cases or current issues, right? But not anybody had leveraged the power of future. So I say, like, if I focus on future, okay, and then I'll be complementary to other law firms. I don't have to always compete. It's an age of competition. Cooperate and compete, you know. And I said, the biggest reward that you can get is to command the respect of competitors, right? You can command, as you read, you can command respect of clients, you can command respect of the people working and the society around. But when competitors respect you, so I started contributing to empower competitors. That means with all the writings, lots of opinions which we, or research papers we write, almost every law firm, every accounting firm, every university, every student, regulator, they all use it. And it's fun because somebody is reading your paper. Otherwise you write and nobody reads, it's not a good thing. So I said, let me build firm based on the future.
You were ranked as the most innovative law firm. So, and what is innovation I mean, you in the law firm as such?
Innovation, if I may put my own definition, is finding solution to a complex problem through unprecedented mechanism. I'll repeat. Innovation is finding solution to a complex problem through an unprecedented structure. So, what you do and how you do find solution, and what kind of structure you do it or mechanism you use that. So that's how I look at innovation.
So you were the key architect of the Mauritius route getting FDI into India. So how was that born? I mean, how did the whole process start? What was the thought process? I mean, because it's
I
not.
have been asked this question million times,
I'm
zillion
sure.
times. See what happened as as a global lawyer. I was doing a lot of comparative law studies, so understanding laws in India, in the US, in England, in other countries. So comparative law studies has been my forte. So you understand legal and tax systems, plus cultural and other kind of things. Now what happened was in 1990, US-India Treaty was signed. It was negotiated, how long? 23 years. And last 3-4 years I was involved in the negotiation of the treaty, and but it lasted for 23 years because on certain clauses India and US couldn't agree. Now what has happened in the US while studying US law, I found that there is code section 865. What it says is that we will not tax foreigners when they earn capital gains tax from the sale of US company shares. Got it? India says we tax foreign investors on when they sell the Indian company. Right? So why? Because India says, look here, you are investing in Indian company, Indian shares are here, and you are transferring those shares. So source of income is India. So we will tax you here. US says that shares are not tangible property. They are like intangible. So the intangible resides with the person wherever he is residing. So if you are a US resident, like intellectual property, it resides where the holder of property is, right? Same way, as far as shares are concerned, it's intangible. So intangible property is residing or located in the US. So now here is a US person, they say, our person, he has a property in the US and we have first right to tax when they sell. Why India should tax it? In fact, they say that Indians, we don't tax you, even if you make $1 billion on sale of IBM shares or otherwise. But you are taxing us, so we are not going to give you tax credit. So source rules differences, and a lot of things were discussed, negotiated, but India and US could not come to a close. So I believe when Rajiv Gandhi was traveling to US, he said, anyhow, I want treaty to be done, and then both countries said, okay, let us agree to disagree. So the treaty mentions that both countries can tax in accordance with their own laws. So even today, tax credit issue prevails. So US person investing in India, at that time India tax capital gains at the rate of about 25% to 50-60%. US will charge 40%, and depending on the situation. Now together, who will invest? So when India opened up, treaty was signed in 1990.